The Bible, a book revered by millions, speaks of life after death. It's a topic that fascinates and sometimes confuses. This is because the Bible is divided into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Interestingly, these two parts offer different perspectives on what happens after we die. Imagine exploring an ancient land, uncovering hidden layers of history. That's what studying the afterlife in the Bible is like. The Old Testament, written centuries before the birth of Jesus, presents a somewhat mysterious view of the afterlife. It speaks of a place called Sheol, where both the good and the bad went after death. The New Testament, however, reveals a much clearer picture with concepts like heaven, hell, resurrection, and eternal life, largely shaped by Jesus' teachings. Comparing these two perspectives is crucial for understanding how the concept of the afterlife evolved within the Christian faith. The Old Testament describes Sheol as a shadowy realm underneath the earth. It was a place of silence and darkness, where the dead existed in a kind of shadowy sleep. Sheol wasn't a place of punishment or reward, but rather a neutral realm for all who passed away, regardless of their actions in life. Imagine a vast silent cavern where everyone rests, their earthly lives a fading memory. That's the image of Sheol painted by the Old Testament. This concept reflects a different understanding of the afterlife compared to later beliefs. While the nature of Sheol remains somewhat ambiguous, it highlights the Old Testament's focus on life in the present. The Old Testament emphasizes the importance of living a righteous life on earth, according to God's laws. The focus was on the here and now, on honoring God through obedience and faithfulness in this life. Rewards and punishments were often experienced in the present rather than being deferred to the afterlife. Obedience brought blessings, while disobedience resulted in hardship, a theme woven throughout the stories of the Old Testament. This emphasis on earthly life doesn't mean the afterlife was entirely absent from Old Testament thought. However, the nature of that afterlife remained shrouded in mystery, with Sheol as the only certainty. Whispers of resurrection hints in the Old Testament. Despite the focus on earthly life, there are intriguing hints of resurrection scattered throughout the Old Testament. Passages like Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, speak of some awaking from the dust of the earth, some to everlasting life, and others to shame and everlasting contempt. This suggests a future time when the dead might be raised to experience judgment and a more defined afterlife. Similarly, Isaiah chapter 26 verse 19 speaks of the earth releasing its dead, hinting at a future resurrection. These passages, though not as explicit as New Testament teachings, offer glimpses of a developing concept of the afterlife within the Old Testament. They provide a bridge between the shadowy realm of Sheol and the more defined afterlife revealed in the New Testament. A New Hope resurrection and the afterlife in the New Testament. With the arrival of Jesus, the picture of the afterlife becomes much clearer. Jesus spoke extensively about the resurrection, both his own and that of all people. He taught that death was not the end, but a transition to a new life, a life that continued beyond the grave. This concept of resurrection is central to the Christian faith. Jesus' resurrection from the dead is presented as the ultimate victory over death, offering hope and assurance to his followers. The New Testament introduces the concepts of heaven and hell as distinct destinations in the afterlife, determined by one's relationship with God. This stands in contrast to the Old Testament's Sheol, where both the righteous and the wicked went after death. Heaven, hell, and eternal life, the New Testament vision. Heaven is described as a place of unimaginable beauty and joy where believers will dwell eternally with God. Hell, on the other hand, is depicted as a place of separation from God, reserved for those who reject him. This concept of judgment and eternal consequences is a key element of the New Testament's eschatology, its teachings about the end times. The New Testament emphasizes the idea of eternal life, a gift offered through faith in Jesus Christ. This eternal life begins at the moment of salvation and continues after physical death. This focus on eternity and the finality of heaven and hell marks a significant shift from the Old Testament's emphasis on earthly life and the shadowy existence in Sheol.